Hello there, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're safe and well. In this video, we're going to try and sort out my spring. Let's roll those titles. Well, where are we at then? Well, this is the second video about me trying to repair the broken spring that I found in my HW97. If you haven't seen the first video, then take a look. I'll put a link up there. Take a look and have a look at that one, and then this probably make a little bit more sense. But first, I want to thank everybody for all the comments and the suggestions that you've sent me. I'm learning a lot about this stuff that I didn't know before, so hopefully I can sort of pass that on here. And one of the things that somebody mentioned to me is a thing called scragging, which I hadn't heard of before. Scragging, as I've had a look online, is also referred to as pretensioning. And what that is when they make a spring, they stretch it out initially so that it's actually longer than what they intend it to be. And then what they do then is they put it on a jig, and I'll try and do this without it going everywhere. They put it on a jig and they compress it to its maximum compression and leave it for a period of time. And then when it's released, as I hope you can probably see from there, it actually ends up at its natural length, so it's shorter than the length that it was initially sort of stretched and manufactured to. So that's called scragging. Now, problem with scragging is obviously needs to be done when you first get a spring before it goes in the rifle, and unless you've got the right jig to do it, I wouldn't suggest anybody trying it unless they know what they're doing and they've got a proper jig. Because when you think about it, you've got a hell of a lot of energy in this spring when it's fully compressed. I mean, you can't move it much by hand, so the amount of pressure required to compress that fully is quite a lot. So that's scragging. One thing that you can do is, before you buy a new spring, check whether it's been scragged or not. Okay. Now, when I was looking at what springs were available, there's only one provider in the UK that actually openly says that their springs are pre-scragged. So that suggests that not all of them are. Okay. Now, I guess the next best thing to scragging is leaving the spring under some sort of compression. Okay, and that's what some other people suggested to me, because obviously my intention was to leave this in the rifle and shoot a couple of hundred pellets through the rifle, so it was constantly being compressed and expanded and compressed and expanded to get the spring to settle down. But what a few people suggested was that if you just cock your spring rifle and leave it cocked so that the spring is compressed, and leave it overnight, that would be doing the same as shooting a couple of hundred pellets, which I guess makes sense. So anyway, I did try that. I did try leaving it overnight, putting it through the chrono, and then I left it for a second night, put it through the chrono, and the power did reduce slightly, but not significantly. So what I decided to do then was, obviously, because I'm in a position then where I've got an illegal air rifle, I decided the best thing to do was to take the spring out until such times as I could decide what I was going to do with it, so that the rifle was completely dismantled, therefore it was no longer illegal. I mean, that's one thing to bear in mind, that, you know, if you've put a new spring in your rifle and it's over 12 foot-pounds, you know it's over 12 foot-pounds. Even if you keep it locked up, you're still in possession of an illegal air rifle, so you're still breaking the law. So just to be safe, dismantled the rifle and I've left it dismantled up until this point, so I'm not breaking the law. Now, if you've seen the first video, you may remember that I did point out that you have to be very careful about this little pointy bit in the foot on the underlever that actually pushes that cocks the rifle, because that's quite brittle and can break off easily. Well, it seems I didn't take my own advice. Don't ask me how I managed it, probably a stupid thing to do. But when I was dismantling the rifle again, I fiddled about with it. I was only going to take the spring out, and for some reason I just can't explain, I decided to unclip the underlever while the piston and the piston guide was still in the rifle. And yes, you've guessed it, I ended up breaking the point off of the underlever. So I've had to wait to get a replacement. Pretty simple job to replace that. It wasn't an expensive, it's not a particularly expensive part. I think it was about £15 plus postage to replace that, but unnecessary expense. And there's this little rivet that's in there that you have to knock out and put the rivet in. So there's the new one in, ready to go back in. So what I've decided to do, I mean, I've measured these two springs to make a comparison. I've got the broken one there. Obviously it's not at full length because of the break, but if I put them side by side, you can see that we're only talking about when I measured them correctly, we're talking about a difference of 10mm in spring length. I did have a closer look, and you can see that, you know, on the new spring the coils are a little bit closer together, so it's not, you know, this is, I don't know what spring this is. I assumed that it was a VMAX spring, because I know this is a VMAX spring, but when I look at them they are slightly different. The wire seems to be different thickness, and the coils are different as well. So anyway, because there's only 10mm difference, this was originally at 10.5 foot-pounds. This is a little over 12. So if I want to get it just above 11 foot-pounds, which is what I'm aiming at, then I'm looking at 5, if it works that way, say a 5mm difference. So what I decided to do was, rather than cut a coil off of the end of this spring, I'm actually going to compress a coil and see how I go with that. I think it's probably an easier job to do to heat this up and compress the coil than to have to cut the coil off and then grind it all down. So I'm going to take this in the workshop, and we're going to heat this up to it gets to the cherry red colour, where apparently the steel goes all soft, and use a pair of pliers to squash that top coil down and reduce the length of the spring. But before we do that, obviously we've got to remove the plastic bits from it. If you try and pull it, it's not going to come out. It's like one of these Chinese finger puzzles, you know, where you put your finger in the tube, and when you try and pull it out, it won't come out. So what I've been told is that the best way to get it undone is to twist the coil in a clockwise direction and pull at the same time, which, voila, it comes off. So if you are struggling with that, you also need to put it on, you need to do it the same as well. So you twist it clockwise and push it on, okay? Because one thing to be aware of is that when the spring compresses, the distance between the coils, the spring actually opens up. So when this is fully compressed, this top hat and this end bit are free to rotate within the spring, okay? So clockwise and pull, comes out. So we're going to take this over to the workshop, and I don't know how it's going to come out. I'll try and film what I do and see how we go. Right, so we're in the workshop and it's absolutely freezing in here. Going to be wearing welding gloves. Got the got the blowtorch warming up and the spring in the vise to hold it up. I've watched a couple of videos, think I know what I'm doing. Hopefully it will go fine. We'll see how it goes. Trying to see whether that is nice and flat. Trying to get it as flat as possible so that it goes back on the top hat again. Yeah, it's a bit of an angle, so I think we need to just bring that side down a little bit more so that it's level. So let's bring, let's keep that, lift that up again. Good. Let's have a look at that. There we go. Put that in front of the camera. You can see that it's flat. Yep. Turn the blowtorch off so you can hear me. Right, one thing I decided not to do. There's two schools of thought. One, that you quench it in oil, and two, that you let it cool down naturally. Now, quenching it in oil means that you re-harden the steel, so it's going to go brittle. So I've gone with the school of thought that you're better off it not being brittle, because, I mean, obviously that's why the last spring broke, because those top coils were too brittle. That's why it's broken off. So I'm going to leave it like that and let it cool down naturally so that the steel on those rings stays a bit softer. So that's compressing the springs then, or compressing the coils. You can see there the top two coils compressed together. Hopefully that will do the job. Well, we're back in the workshop then, but oh, you don't know how cold it was out there. So while I'm warming up and while the spring's cooling down, something else that I just want to mention, that, you know, throughout this sort of adventure or this thing that I've learned as well, is that it's the old small print when you buy a spring. You'll notice that on most adverts or most places that sell you a spring, they'll put a little rider on there to say that you know, there's no guarantee that that this spring is fit and forget, in effect. That you might not be able to put the spring in and then still have a legal rifle. So there's a pretty good chance, if you buy a replacement spring, that you're going to have to make an adjustment to it, either collapsing a coil like I've tried to see if that has a desired effect, or cutting a complete coil off and regrinding it. So if you need to replace the spring on your rifle and you don't feel up to that, then I would strongly suggest that you get somebody do it. Like you take it to an RFD, or you take it to a tuner or somebody that knows what they're doing, so that they can do it for you. So that's that one out the way. So before I continue refitting the spring and see if it's had the desired effect, I'm going to go off on a little side story. Now, you might remember that in the first video I said that I had to wait until round 5 of the club league before I could take the rifle apart, because that would give me a month to get it all back together again, so that I'd have it ready to shoot for the final round, round 6, which was in December, a week or so ago. Well, because I broke this bit, obviously I couldn't put the rifle back together again. So I was in two minds about whether I was going to shoot or at all, really, because of not having the 97, which is what I'd used for the previous 5 rounds. But I have got another Springer, which I haven't shown you on the channel yet. It's one that I do intend to introduce and do a user review of. But I'll show you that now, and that's this rifle here, which is a Walther LGV break barrel. Now, as you probably know, most people in springing in HFT use Air Arms TX200 or the Wirac HW97. I know I might be pronouncing Wirac wrong, but you know what? If I say Wirac, you know what I mean, even if it's Wirac or whatever it is. Okay. But these, I just thought it would be nice to sort of like break the mold a bit and have another rifle and see how that does in comparison to those two. So I was looking out for either an LGU, which is the underlever version, but as I haven't got a break barrel, you know, the LGV was the obvious one to come by. This came up on Gun Trader, was being sold by an RFD with a scope, with a sling, not the scope that's on it, it was another scope, for under 300 quid. So it was a no-brainer, really. So I've had this in my cabinet. I have plinked with it, and I've practiced a little bit with it, but I haven't shot a course with it. Now, course, couldn't use the 97. This was in a bag without a scope on it, so I thought, okay, what I'll do, I will put a scope on it, and I'll use this to shoot the 6th round of the league. So this scope here is the Hawk Air Max that was on the 97 before I put the Optimax CP on that one. So bung the scope on. I managed to get half an hour out in the garden, lying on the ground in the cold, or the things we do, and get some sort of zero at 25 yards. And then it went in the bag. I needed my aim points, so basically I used a ballistic calculator with the data that I had for this gun. Like, I put it through the chrono and got the got the energy from it. did the tinfoil test to get the proper sight height. So I got all my aim points through using Mero. If you want to know how to use that, look back at my past videos. I'll put another link up here to Mero, of how to use Mero. And then turned up totally unprepared with this gun. I thought, I wasn't even sure, I'm not even sure what pellets it shoots well. So I just grabbed a tin of AA Fields 8.4 grain to use straight out of the tin. And we went to the league shoot to shoot this. Now, as you can see, it's quite a long rifle. I have to take the moderator off to stick it in the bag. So why shoot it with a moderator on, you might ask? Well, because I zeroed it in the garden, and I know that if I tried one shot without the moderator, and the zero without the mod was completely different. So to not annoy the neighbours when I was zeroing it, I kept the mod on, so therefore I needed to keep the mod on for the competition. Got a few laughs at the length of it. Some people were saying that the short range targets I could poke over with the barrel because it was that long and they were that close. Yeah, so we went to the comp to shoot, not expecting much, and I'll show you my card, shall I? Let's put this down. Right, there's the card. Look at that. Can you believe it? That is the best score, 54 out of 60. That's my best HFT Springer score this year with a gun that I hadn't really properly prepared for. To be honest, it turned out to be a lovely rifle to shoot, very predictable. As you can see, I put this is an elbow pad that I put over the stock just to raise my my cheek up a bit so that I could get the proper eye line with it. And yeah, I'm really impressed with it. Some people at the club were saying, why don't you throw your 97 away and just use that? Well, it's something to think about, isn't it? So so that was that. And yeah, so 54, and I ended up winning the league. So you can't complain about that, can you? So back to the spring then. So one final thing then, before I put everything back together and I put the gun through the chrono, see where we are. I did mention on the last video that Lynn had suggested that I needed to have at least one slip washer down the piston rod at the bottom of the piston to allow the allow the top hat to freely rotate inside the piston, because as I said earlier, when the spring compresses, that grip is released on that top hat and it's free to rotate. So it needs to, everything needs to be able to freely rotate inside and outside of the spring. So what I'll be doing when I put it back together is we'll be putting that washer in, because I know from experience that the thickness of that washer is going to be insignificant as regards the power. So I'll make sure that there's always at least one washer in there so that that's top hat's free to rotate. So what I'm going to do now is stop the video, and I'm going to put the rifle back together, and then we'll come back and see how it does through the chrono. Oh, sorry, back again. One last point that I forgot to mention. I really should I should have written all these points down that I needed to say. But a guy at the club that knows far more about airguns than I do, and sees to all the club guns for everybody, saw the video and suggested that I didn't put enough grease on the piston. Okay, I mean, I was working on the basis of other information that I'd been told, where it was just a case of putting grease where the where you could see the lines of wear. So what he suggested is to rub a thin film of grease all over the piston, and then put your fingers around it and pull down so that you're just leaving a thin film. Now, the reason being that you need that total film of grease over the piston, because inside the piston tube, depending on the temperature, the viscosity of the grease will change, depending on whether, obviously in the cold it will get thicker, in the heat it will get thinner, and that change in viscosity will help to keep the piston speed more constant, so you don't notice a difference in the power output, so much of a difference in the power output of the spring rifle in extreme temperatures. So makes sense to me, so that's what I'm going to do. So definitely that's all I've got for you till I put it back together. I think so now anyway, we'll see. Okay, here we are then, set up with the chrono. Going to put 10 pellets through the rifle and see what the outcome is. So the magic number there is 800 feet per second, I think, I seem to remember. Right, first shot. These are JSB 8.44 grain pellets. 783.2 feet per second. So that's hopeful. Second shot. 780. Just one more on camera. $796.5. That's a bit higher, still below the 800 though. Just one more, just to make sure that we get them all below. 784.2. Okay, what I'm going to do, that's 4 shots. I'm going to do another 6, and then I can put them in my calculator and see what the outcome is, and I'll be back with you then. Okay, so I finished my chrono testing, got the printout here. Looking down the 10 shots, we have an average of 789.2 feet per second, which is 11.67 foot-pounds, with a spread of 20.7, standard deviation of 7. So the spread and standard deviation, I would expect those to improve, obviously, when things settle in. But 11.67, I think that's pretty, yeah, that's pretty good. If we're aiming for sort of like 11.5, none of the results. Well, we've got 7.9, yeah, 11.86. So I think we've got enough of a differential between these results and 800 feet a second that we can say that that the rifle is going to stay legal, and we'll see how it settles down over time. So, rifle's all back together again. Panic over. Everything's repaired and working as it should. So that's all I've got for you for now. I hope you found that interesting. Certainly I've learnt quite a bit about springs and bits and pieces, so tried to pass that on. So I hope you found that useful, and I'll see you on the next one.